Hey, I'm Alex Macklin from Board Game Co, and today we are continuing our series of random questions that we like to ask. Random questions we go over that I get to go ahead and ask you, and then in the follow-up video, go over your responses and share them with you, going over how you all felt. And as usual in this video, we're going to have a few sections. We're going to be going over last week's answers, and then we're going to be going ahead and giving you 5 new questions for you to answer. There'll be a link down in the description down below. You can go ahead and click on that to go ahead and enter your information, not enter your information, that sounds so, I'm not collecting anything about you. You don't have to do emails, you don't have to do that. You could technically submit an answer 5 times and it would let it happen, so if you really want to abuse the system, there is the room to do that. I mean, if it makes you happy, then go ahead and do it. But either way, it's going to be a Google form. You can collect those answers, and of course, links and timestamps to everything down below if you want to go over our recap of last week's questions, or if you just want to go ahead and check out the new questions and answer those. Either way, it's appreciated. And I don't usually ask people to share videos, but this is the one series where I'm like, hey, if you like this video series, by all means, share it somewhere, because I like to get information from people who aren't just the people watching this video series. Either way, let's go ahead and dive into this, starting off with last week's questions. Last month's questions. Last month's poll was specifically around the nature of types of content that people do or don't find that they mind in board games. Board games are full of different types of content, from the most friendliest of friendly, I mean in terms of like kid appropriate, age appropriate, all that, all the way up to any number of different things with full-on adult themes, and there's violence and swearing, and I guess actually I don't know if it engages the swearing, but I'm sure there's games that have swearing somewhere. But there's a lot of different types of conversations or different types of topics in board games that might be bothersome to different people. And so last week's questionnaire was specifically around different adult topics, different more serious topics, and which ones do or don't bother you. Specifically, we're going to be going over a bunch of different questions with the same general formatting. That formatting is going to be, how likely are you to play a game with this and this theme? And the answers are going to be, I won't play them, I'm less likely to play them, it has no impact on my desire to play them, I'm marginally more likely to want to play them, I'm much more likely to want to play them. Those are the categories we had over there, 5 different answers, a spectrum of answers, and we're going to go through a whole bunch of them. There's a lot, and then at the end there's 3 or 4 questions that are around the general aspect of what we're talking about and not specific things. So if you get too bored here and you want to skip, I recommend checking out the last few answers. I think those are going to be interesting in their own right. And I have not gone through any of these yet. I don't really know what the answers are. Usually I kind of like to go in blind because I like the reaction I have on camera to like, ooh, I didn't see that coming. But let's go ahead and start off with the first question. How likely are you to play a game with abstracted violence? Examples include War of the Ring, Star Wars Rebellion, etc. Meaning violence is a key factor in these games, but it's not like in any way remotely personal. It's very abstracted in terms of the actual killing or fighting or anything going on in the game. And we have answer, I won't play them, with no answers there. No one was unwilling to play a game with abstracted violence. We had, whatever percentage this is, less likely to play them, with 24 people are less likely to play them. We had the largest portion with 307 or 65% of people, no impact. Then we had 18.9% more likely to play, and finally 11% much more likely to want to play those games. Which makes sense. If you think of things like dudes on a map, or or anything with area control, there's almost always abstracted violence in those. I personally find myself in the camp of I'm marginally more likely to want to play them. I do like it as a theme, but I like many themes, so it's just one of many themes that I enjoy. Moving on, we have how likely are you to play a game with more direct violence. Examples include Gloomhaven, Nemesis, etc. It's still abstracted compared to like video games or, I don't know, movies or whatnot, but there's more direct. You are a character, you are using your weapons, you're inflicting violence, you're rolling dice and attacking goodies or baddies or who knows what. And so that same kind of conversation, but just a little bit more real. We had, again, no one that didn't want to play them. We had I'm less likely to play them with 7.6. Oh, actually, fun. We had a number so small over there in the middle that I can't even click on it. I won't play them as 3. So interesting. So you do have a slight increase, which a slight increase does make sense, but no major change. We had three people answering they're not going to play them. We had 58% instead of 65% going with, we have 7.6% instead of 5.1% with less likely. The larger section in the middle is still roughly the same, where 59 versus 65, but again, you're going to have some extremes on both sides. And then we have also a few people who are more likely to play those games with that more concentrated. So we had 20.1 and 12.7 instead of 18.9 and 11%. So we kind of saw a shrinking of the middle category and slight pushes to both directions, which is not unreasonable. Moving on, how likely are you to play a game with over-the-top violence? Examples include Letters from Whitechapel, Hate, etc. So now we're really starting to get into much more. Like in Letters from Whitechapel, you are murdering women of the night before the game begins and then trying to escape. That one I wasn't sure where to put it, by the way, because it's it's more over the top, but it's still like, it doesn't really happen in the game. It's kind of is abstracted, but it's abstracted in a more concrete way. So my examples are always going to bias the questions, but I just wanted to include certain games and try to fit them in where I felt was most relevant. And then we have hate, which is literally taking bodies and eating their corpses. We have in this conversation, we have 7.7% going with I won't play them. So now it starts to make a real difference over here. 35% I'm less likely to play them. We had again in the middle 46.3 starting to shrink over here. Although what is interesting is we had are marginally more likely to want to play them start shrinking over here, and are much more likely to want to play them with 19 people really start shrinking, which again to me makes sense. This so far all kind of makes sense to me, where you get like, you know, abstracted violence, sure, it's area control, whatever. A little over the top, yeah, I like direct combat. And then you're like, I like to burn your bodies and eat the corpses, and everyone's like, I don't know if I need that. Like, I'll play it. There's still a large percentage of people who are like, I'll play it, but like fewer people are like, I want to play it, and more people are like, hey, maybe I'll back away a bit. This all kind of makes intuitive sense to me so far. Moving on. How likely are you to play a game with blood and or gore? Examples include Nemesis, Cthulhu Let Me Die, Final Girl, etc. And then again, I won't play them with coming in with 5.3%. We have I'm less likely to play them with 23.1%, 53.3% at no impact, 11.3% marginally more likely, and then we have 7% I'm much more likely to play them. Kind of lines up, a little less than the full-on, you know, intense violence one, but again, makes sense. How likely are you to play a game with horror as the theme? Examples include Final Girl, Blood on the Clock Tower, Arkham Horror. We have, coming at the smallest, 5.7%, I won't play them. 29%, I'm less likely to play them. 35%, it has no impact. 18% goes up, are marginally more likely to want to play them, and 12.1% are much more likely to want to play them. Again, kind of makes sense. I've never once thought, I want more blood in my gore, in my board games. But the idea of horror as a theme, that's like almost thematic. I don't think as many people want blood and gore, but more people do want specific themes, and horror is a theme. How likely are you to play a game with colonization as a theme? Examples include Puerto Rico, the colonists, etc. And this obviously leans into the whole conversation around colonization as a heavy theme in board games, and the way that's been a constant thing, like, oh, let's go colonize these places with our people, and just figure that out. And we had over here, 3.6% I won't play them. We had 19.7% I'm less likely to play them. 64.6% no impact on my desire. 9.5% marginally more likely to play them. And then 2.5% I'm much more likely to want to play them. This, by the way, this I found interesting. See, I'm going to go into a little bit of a conversation on this one. This poll is anonymous. This doesn't collect your information. I don't know who did it. Whoever wants to put whatever answers they can do so. I do find it fascinating that there are people who are more, and this is not said with, maybe it's said with a little judgment. I want to say it's not said with judgment, but it might be said with a little judgment, because I do find it interesting. To me, and I would say it's said with a little bit of judgment, but with ignorance from the perspective, if that makes sense. Because the idea of wanting to play a game more, because it has colonization as a theme, I don't get that. Now, I don't know why you have that. Maybe it's because you associate it with other games that are, you know, similar and you like the gameplay. But, like, I understand horror as a theme. Like, I understand, like, that's a theme. But, like, I don't think, and this, again, it's said with a tiny bit of judgment, but also a lack of possibly understanding. I've never once thought I want colonization as a theme in a game. It's not something that I'm like, ooh, yay, colonization. Like, that's fun. Versus many themes, like war, yes, which I guess is an interesting conversation. Why is it reasonable to want war and violence as a theme in a game, but colonization not so much? I don't know. I don't know why it is, but instinctively I'm like, that's weird. I do wonder how many people are like, well, how many were kind of going counterculture with their answers, versus how many are like, genuinely, no, I want to play them. And I'm not looking for any answers here. I don't want to get anyone in hot water in any way, shape, or form, but I do find that interesting on the more likely to want to play in that category. How likely are you to play a game with Hitler or Nazis as a theme? Examples include Secret Hitler, Sniper Elite, etc. Like, if you play Sniper Elite, don't tell anyone this, but one side's playing as the Nazis. Like, that's like, you're trying to stop the sniper. Trying to capture the sniper who's, like, the good guy, and you're, like, the Nazis. Like, that's a thing. They try not to focus on that because they don't want to, but that's the thing in the game. And then Secret Hitler's like, we're going to focus on it. We don't care. We had, I won't play them over there with 9.5%. I'm less likely to play them with 31.8%. It has no impact on my desire to play them with 51.7%. And then we have, I'm marginally more likely to want to play them, and I'm much more likely to want to play them with 1.5%. And again, I wonder where that answer comes from. So speaking as a Jewish person over here, my own personal answer, and I guess not mean that, I think there's a reason I am saying that, but speaking as a Jewish person, my own personal answer is it has no impact on my desire to play them. Probably because I don't mind war-themed games, but I don't yet know how it's going to feature them, so like I'm kind of like ambivalent. If you put it in the game, as long as it's not in bad taste, like I don't care. But yeah, so for me, I'm in the giant orange center there. But the idea of wanting to play a Hitler or Nazis themed game more is interesting to me. I can't resonate with that. I'm not, like, I don't, maybe the last time maybe it's not judgment. I don't know if it's judgment on my end, because I just don't think I understand. But I don't know if there's actual judgment, because there's a lack of understanding on my end. Like, if you do want to play a game with colonization or Nazis, and that makes you more likely to want to play a game, I think I just don't understand. That's what it is. It's not judgment. It's a lack of understanding. Moving on over here. How likely are you to play a game with magic as a theme? Examples include Harry Potter deck building game, Wiz War, Magic the Gathering, etc. We have I won't play them over here with some small percentage, 1.3%. Less likely to play them with 7%. We have no impact with 42.7%, 29.5% say I'm marginally more likely, and 19.5% say I'm much more likely. This is interesting because this so far is the largest uptick. People actively want this. If you look at all the conversations so far, this is the largest uptick in how much it makes somebody want to play the game, so good to know. Moving on. How likely are you to play a game with religion as a theme? Examples include Deliverance, Gollum, Kingdoms of Solomon. I won't play them with 4.2%, less likely with 32%, no impact with 48.9%, marginally more likely with 10.4%, and then we have much more likely with 4.4%. Again, kind of makes sense. Religion is often a controversial subject, putting into a board game. I'm not surprised that there's a decent portion of people that are like, you know what, I just don't want religion in my board games, I just want to play board games. How likely are you to play a game with demons or devils? Examples include Massive Darkness 2, Dark Souls, Deal with the Devil, etc. I won't play them over here with 4.2%. It has no less likely to play them with 16.1%. The largest group, it has no impact, which consistently in this whole thread is the biggest group of you are just like, I don't care, I'm just here for games. Like, the mechanics good, I'll play the game. Mechanics are not good, I won't play the game. Although technically I didn't put a question if you care if the game is good, but I assume you care if the game is good. And then we have 14.6% with more likely, and then coming in with 4.4% with much more likely. How likely to play a game with gods? Example includes Cyclades, Amon-Ra, etc. Fun fact, by the way, the amount of games with gods in them, it is insane. There are so many games. Kemet, Cyclades, Inish, Amon-Ra, like left, right, and center, Blood Rage. There's so many freaking games that have gods in them. If you don't want religion in your games, and granted gods and religions are a little different, I get it, but there's gods left, right, and center in so many board games, it's obscene. We have I won't play them over here. That's 1.5% who are not playing a lot of games. Not said with judgment, just with commentary in the board game space. Less likely to play them with 5.5%, no impact with 67%, more likely with 18.9%, and much more likely with 6.6%. I'm actually probably in the much more likely category in this one. I usually love the things that gods do in games. Like, oh, gods, that means powers and abilities, because half the reason you have gods is to give yourself a reason to do cool things that are not thematically otherwise available. So, like, I love it. Moving on. How likely are you to play a game with dating as a theme? Examples include Fog of Love, Ladies and Gentlemen, Obsession, etc. I won't play them with 6.4%. That's one of the highest numbers we've seen so far, eclipsed by Hitler and Nazis. I think Hitler and Nazis is the, oh my gosh. Oh, no, over-the-top violence also is doing fine there. So how likely to play a game with dating as a theme? 6.4% say I won't. 46.5% I'm less likely to play them. Honestly, I'm in that camp as well. 39.7% with that has no impact. And then we have marginally more likely to play them with 5.7%, and much more likely to play them with 1.7%. Which means, just so we're on the same page here, this is some of the interesting things you get over here, we have more people who want to play colonization games than dating or love-themed games. Honestly, I get that. You know what? I take it back. I take everything I said back. I am more likely to want to play a game with a colonization theme than dating or love. It's not great, I understand that, but a colonization game is more likely to be mechanically a game that I enjoy than a dating or love-themed game. So honestly, I kind of get that. Moving on. How likely are you to play a game with less than fully clothed women? No actual nudity. Examples include Small World, Mage Knight, Blood Rage, and I feel like Small World, yeah, the Amazons. The Amazons of Small World are less than fully clothed. I say this, in my years of dealing with used board games, I would frequently get used board games that had various people. Blood Rage I mentioned because one of the clans is fully unclothed. Mage Knight has a full person. You would get people who had their cards colored in to make them more appropriate, which made the games harder to trade. So that was always fun. Not moving on. I won't. We have a tiny sliver of whatever is like the number 1%. I can't even see. There is someone there. I won't play them. Is 1, which I find interesting. I thought that would be a higher number. I definitely thought there would be a higher number here. Less likely to play them with 13.1. 76% say has no impact. Marginally more likely to play them with 7.6, and much more likely to play them with 2.8. How likely are you to play a game with intentionally provocatively dressed women? Still no nudity. Examples include Tanto Curie, Barbarossa, etc. And you can check out a whole lot of games that have that, but they're there. We have I won't play them with 10.9%. And we have I'm less likely to play them with 30.2%. Oh, by the way, last question, I'm in the giant circle. I don't really care, but when it's not really there, but like it's there, I don't really care. When we have intentionally provocatively, I won't say never, but I'm definitely in the less likely to play them camp myself. I am a little bit of a prude at heart. I'm sorry for that. It just, years of being, I don't know, I'm apologizing for it. I am a bit of a prude at heart. Anyways, we have a 49.4%. It has no impact on my desire to play them. We have a marginally more likely to want to play them with 6.8%, and I'm much more likely to want to play them with 2.8%. Moving on, how likely you want to play a game with over-the-top sexualizing of its characters. Examples include King Death Monster, Madara, etc. I won't play them at 18%. 35.9% say I'm less likely. 36.7% say it doesn't matter. We have 5.9% with more likely, and 3.4% with more likely. And in that camp, again, I'm kind of in the... I think I am in the less likely, but it's situational. Like Madara, I'm willing to, but that's because I kind of want to play Madara. Whereas the King of Death Monster, I don't care enough, and it does make me less want to play it. How likely are you to play a game with dirty humor? Examples include Codenames, Deep Undercover, any party game with an NSFW expansion. 20.9% say I won't play them. We definitely have a winner here so far, temporarily. It's about to get higher in a second. 20.9% say I won't play them. 36% say I am less likely. 28.3% say no change whatsoever. I'm marginally more likely with 11.7%, and we have 3.2% with I'm much more likely to want to play them. See, instinctively when I see NSFW anything on a game, my instinct is no, we don't need that. But I will admit I have had some fun gaming sessions with the right group of people when an NSFW expansion comes out. So usually in party games, it's almost always a party game. So my instinct is usually I'm less likely to play them, but I have had some good times with friends, and it's one of those things, like sometimes loosening your guard a bit and just being a little bit less, I don't know, appropriate, uptight around friends can be a fun moment, and I definitely enjoyed that. Moving on, how likely to play a game with specifically adult theme? Examples include Night Shift, the inspiration for this entire poll, and Consentical, which if you Google that, you're welcome or I'm sorry. One of those things. I should have put Buse and Memo. Why didn't I put Buse and Memo in here? Buse and Memo should have been I don't know, Buse and Memo might have been under the full on top nudity. Did I do full on top nudity? I don't know if I did. Buse and Memo should have been somewhere on this list. If you don't know Buse and Memo, that was a BGG meme for a long time. Anyways, Night Shift Consentical. We have 25.6% I won't play them. I am in that camp myself, I think. I mean, there's a possibility it changes, but I think I'm definitely in the I don't want to play them, and there could be a situation in which I did, but definite instinct, my own personal preference is not to. We have 31.6%, I'm less likely. 33.5% makes no difference. Marginally more interested with 5.9%, and much more interested with 33.4%. And then we get to the final questions over here. Do you feel it's important for you to be consistent in where and when you are bothered? E.g., not wanting to play King Death Monster, but then being willing to play Madara. I use that because that's my own example. To be clear, this example is just an example. Pick any instance where you think you might be inconsistent. So 29.9% said yes, they feel it's important to be consistent. And 70% said no. I'm definitely in the no camp. I do believe consistency is a value, and I think especially if you're going to be arguing a point, I think consistency is a value. For me personally, when I'm picking or choosing what bothers me, if I'm trying to make a point about the world or policy or things like that, consistency is something I definitely value in a lot of things. But on a personal interest, on a personal aspect of, hey, this bothers me and I don't want to play it, this doesn't bother me, I'm kind of like, if I'm not hurting anyone, I don't care. If I am hurting someone, consistency is important. Not that I should consistently hurt people, but the reason I'm okay with one thing or not, that I think is important. If it's just my own personal preference, I don't know if I care. I mean, I know I don't care. Moving on, is it important for you to weigh up your consistency across other issues and try to be as fair as possible? Example, if you're sensitive to A but not B, do you feel you should be re-examining your sensitivities to either be less sensitive to A or more sensitive to B for the sake of parity? Now, this wasn't necessarily phrased the best. I don't know how to phrase it in a way that wasn't 4.5 paragraphs or me just talking for a while, but this is kind of going to the original question as to the prompt for this, which is, if you're bothered by nudity and not violence, do you think you should be weighing up whether those things are equal or not, or ultimately, what you're bothered by, what you're not bothered by, you're not bothered by? And again, I'm kind of in the camp of no. It's not important for me to weigh those things up. If it's about my own personal biases, my own personal preferences, I don't personally feel that need to equate them all. Because the problem there is that could have the positive effect of making you be consistent in a good way, but it could make other things worse. You might just lower expectations in other areas instead of matching things. So for me, it's kind of like, again, if it's about me, just a no for me. And then lastly, when you indicated less likely or won't play on any question, do you also feel strongly enough about the issue that you prefer these games not to exist at all? I mean, in other words, if you are bothered by something and it makes you less interested in it, do you think that thing shouldn't exist at all? And I don't think it's a crazy question, by the way. There are many things in life where I think it's totally acceptable to want your preferences to go across different regions. There's many things in life in which you want your preferences to expand to others. If I prefer, like, again, without going too crazy over here, if you are against abortion because you believe it's murder, it's not crazy to think that you might want that choice or that lack of choice applied to others. Because if you believe it's murder, well, of course you should get rid of it. If. This is all the if conversation. Versus in these categories about board games, again, so not versus. So similarly here, if you feel something is not good for, and again, I hate to say this, but like the moral fabric of society. If you're concerned with the moral fabric of society, I don't think it's unreasonable to have the expectation or assumption that some of these things are personal preference for you, and some of these things you care about their existence at all. We have, unsurprisingly, 79% saying, nope, the answers were only about my own preferences, which is, I think, how I feel about most, but the next answer is 18.4%, which is case by case, which would be if you feel some one way, some the other way, then sure. And then lastly, with a small sliver over here, we have, yes, I think these types of issues are a problem, and that they exist at all. Which again, I don't even think, lots of you will be like, how could you, you're trying to define society. I don't think it's a crazy viewpoint. You might disagree with the viewpoint, but if you believe something is bad for society, it's not crazy to want that thing gone. Now, there's a difference between wanting it gone versus enforcing it yourself. Like life can be complicated. It's not always black and white. It's not always simple. I think for me, I'm trying to think through, like the only category that I should have put in the I wouldn't play would be games like Night Shift and Consectical. I don't know if I care that they exist. I don't think I do. Again, I do have certain biases at play. Like I said, I'm definitely a prude at heart. My upbringing, religion, all these things, I definitely have that bias to me. But I don't think I care enough that these things exist. I have my personal biases or preferences around them, and I think there are things in life that I do think I do care about. These I don't think would fall in that category, so I'm going to put myself in that no camp for this. And that's what we have as far as the old questions, which brings us to the new questions. New questions for you. We got 5 new questions, very simple, very to the point. Number 1, without any, and again, these I don't give my own musings on now, because I don't want to bias you anyway, just the question, that's it. Number 1, without any more context about the publisher or game, would you rather play a non-IP game or a game of an IP you enjoy? Without any further context. You don't know the publishers, you don't know what the game mechanics are, you just know that your options are a game or a game with an IP that you enjoy. And the IP is the thing you enjoy, not the game. You don't know about the game yet. Question number 2. Would you rather buy a game with miniatures or acrylic standees? Question number 3. If you could choose to stop any new games from coming out for the next 10 years, would you do so? A freeze on new games for the next 10 years. Yes or no? You can think about why, and we've been asking that. You can answer however you want. But if you could choose no new games, and I should add, assuming no one was harmed by the answer to this question. There's lots of people whose livelihood depends on games. I'm answering just about your own personal, how it affects you, not the others. Everyone else found magical jobs, and everyone's all fine and good. Okay, so would you choose to stop any new games from coming out for the next 10 years? Would you do so? Number 4. What's your preferred game type? Solo, cooperative, teams, or competitive? This is not a ranked choice, just your preference, the one you prefer the most. How do you discover, question 5, how do you discover new board games? Select all that apply. Board Game Geek hotness, forums, etc., social media, content creators, local game stores, board game conventions, friends and game group, other, you could fill in the blank. I'm sure there are others. I didn't think of well, it's 2 things. There are some others that I think are fringe answers, but I think for the most part I try to go with what I thought were the most common answers, but there are things like, oh, I'm just on Amazon and it shows me new board games. Oh, I'm on IGN and they have an article about buying Everdell expansions or whatnot. Things like that. But that's just it. That is your question roundup. Until next time, I'm Alex Rat. Well, before we do that, until next time part, thank you so much for joining us here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you have... Did I mention it? I may not have. If you have questions that you would like to see in this roundup over here, if you have things that you think would be a good question, if you want them to show up on other people's answers and all that, by all means, please post them in the comments down below, because I do include your questions in these polls, because, frankly, I can't think of 5 questions every single month after month, while remaining interesting. And my goal is that these things should be interesting, so your help is always appreciated, and then you get to be a part of the conversation, to a certain extent, at the very least. So go ahead and post your comments down below. Also, if you can go ahead and fill out that poll poll because I don't use this for any market research or anything. These are publicly available. Use how you want. Do what you want with them. I just think they're interesting conversations, and that's basically where we are. So until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.